everybody, welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to be putting out a video, a review for a certain disc or a bag or my in the bag for this year, but it has been snowing and freezing cold every day for the past week, so I haven't been able to go outside and do any sort of productive, recording out there for you guys. So instead, today what we're going to be talking about is quality control between disc golf manufacturers and brands. I find this stuff incredibly interesting, so I wanted to talk about it to you guys. But before we begin, I wanted to get a couple things. We'll set some ground rules. Each of the brands that I'm going to be ranking, I will not be touching unless I have owned 5 or more of each brand's discs. I wouldn't think it would be fair to do anything with less. And yes, I'm aware I would prefer to have a larger sample size for each brand, but I just haven't purchased that many discs. I'm just doing this based on trends that I've noticed. The second thing that I wanted to bring up, quality is extremely subjective. I'm going to be coming at this from the perspective of the most critical consumer that I could be, as this is what I would normally do whenever reviewing the quality of products at work. However, quality might be different too. What I'm going to bring up might not bother you whatsoever. So take all of this stuff with a grain of salt and be aware that everyone's ideas of quality are different. I'm going to be as strictly critical as I possibly can be of these brands. Also, we are not talking about the products themselves, right? I'm not ranking these based on, oh, I like this particular mold better than this other company's molds. It's strictly about the quality of the products themselves, meaning is the surface finish good? Is there pitting? Is there flashing? Is there warping? Do you generally find extremely inconsistent molds in this manufacturer's lineup? Things like that. Not necessarily the molds themselves. So, with those things being said, let's get right into the list. First of all, we have Discmania, which is not actually a manufacturer. They are a brand. They have been left on this list. I didn't make this tier list. This is just a list that someone else has thrown together. But I'm leaving Discmania on this list because whenever you contract out production to other companies, I'm not actually sure of Discmania's contracts and whether or not they have any control over the quality standards for their products. I'm sure they do to some degree, so I'm going to rank them differently than Innova and Latitude 64, which are the actual manufacturers that produce their discs. With that being said, in recent years, and by recent years I mean literally the last year, Discmania Originals, which is produced by Innova, has sort of found its way slowly being phased out of the market. Since the disc golf market blew up in the last year, Innova, I don't know, has really had the time to give Discmania extra manufacturing time. And as such, Discmania Originals have basically been out of stock and going for ludicrous amounts of money due to scarcity over the past year. By contrast, Latitude 64 seems to be providing them an ample stock, and increasingly so as time goes on. So, weighting those two things together, I'm going to put Discmania above average in terms of quality control. Why? Well, the Discmania Originals line, from the ones that I've tried, the surface finish, I have yet to find one that has any problems with it. The only concerns that I've had, as is the case with most Innova discs, is dimensional accuracy. Some might argue that's a feature, that you need fewer molds to produce more lines, but I don't necessarily adore the thought of sort of rolling the dice whenever you're buying something online. I like to know what you're buying before you buy it. And for that reason, Innova's portion of Discmania is going to knock it down a peg. By contrast, the Evolution line from Discmania, the discs that I've owned, have been phenomenal. The surface finish has been perfect. I have not seen flashing on any of them. They are all buttery smooth, and dimensionally, they seem extremely consistent from disc to disc. So, weighting those two things against each other, I'm going to put Discmania above average. Next up, we have Infinite Discs, another company that manufactures through Innova. However, Infinite only uses Innova for their discs. Infinite's sort of a weird case. Their discs are usually generally they're cheaper than other manufacturers on their site. The problem is every single disc I have bought from Infinite, maybe with the exception of one, has had something wrong with it. Whether that be a couple of them have had like this really weird, extremely rough surface finish to them. And I'm not talking X outs, I'm talking, stock runs. They've either had like extremely sharp flashing or like very poor surface finish on portions of the disc. Every single one of them, for the most part, with the exception of again maybe one, that I have bought from Infinite. So for that reason, Infinite in my mind is questionable strictly from the quality control perspective. Again, you might, whenever we're thinking of quality, there's a difference between quality and value. For you, Infinite's value might be off the charts because you can generally get their discs for cheaper, and again, flashing and surface finish might not be a problem for you. But just from the perspectives, as we've noted before, Infinite, I believe, is below average related compared to these other brands in terms of quality control. Now for Prodigy. Prodigy, I really like their discs. The surface finish on all of their discs that I've tried has been great. I haven't noticed that many dimensional or inconsistencies from disc to disc from them. The one thing I have noticed from Prodigy is that they do have a problem with flashing sometimes. About half the discs I've bought from them have pretty sharp flashing left on the discs. Again, this isn't a problem for for everyone. It's really easy to just take a piece of sandpaper and get the flashing off. But the thing is, if you were to go into a store and pick up two discs and one of them had really sharp flashing on and the one next to it didn't, I find it hard to imagine many things that would prompt you to take the one with flashing whenever the one next to it doesn't have said flashing. Assuming all things are the same, unless like if the good one of better quality was like grass green and the one that you wanted, the one with flashing had the exact color you wanted, I could see you choosing it. That, but whenever you're comparing just straight up, flashing to me is one of the bigger flags. Whenever I touch a disc, I feel that immediately. And Prodigy, about half of their discs have that problem, but it's not nearly as poor as Infinite's. So I will put Prodigy in average based on that problem alone, because I haven't really noticed any other inconsistencies from them thus far. Gateway, I have not tried too many discs from. I don't know that I've tried any, actually. But this brings us now to Innova. Innova actually sort of gets clowned on for their inconsistency, specifically with molds of like really, really high production rates, like their destroyers. I have noticed in the past year, Innova has ratcheted up on their quality control for their discs, as in I've noticed they have been a lot more consistent dimensionally, but I have noticed some other issues. For instance, for destroyers specifically, I have noticed that there have been surface finish problems. Some of you may have noticed that star distance drivers from Innova in the past year sort of have a finish that makes them look like they're blizzard plastics, which is sort of like has air bubbles. This like surface pitting can be caused by several different things, but it does sort of throw me off, and I have noticed that discs that I own with that tend to be just a hair less durable, which I'm not the biggest fan of. So that is sort of a knock away from Innova, though I will say their dimensional accuracy has improved and consistency has improved over the past year. In general, I think Innova is of average quality. I think their consistency from run to run is what hurts them the most, but that, I believe, is the problem whenever you are the largest manufacturer on the market. You are putting out, probably somewhere in the realm of 10,000 discs minimum a day and struggling to keep up with demand at the moment. So Innova is of average quality. I don't necessarily think they're any worse than Prodigy. Now we get to MVP, and in this group we'll also include Axiom and Streamline. MVP, I have not had a single problem with from any perspective. Their surface finish has been excellent. Their consistency has also been excellent. I have never noticed any flashing on their discs. I have never noticed any warping on their discs. They have all been buttery smooth, and I know exactly what I'm getting every single time I buy something from MVP. It it's actually quite nice to know you're getting exactly the same thing every single time from a brand, and MVP was the first one that I noticed that with. Um, so for that reason, I believe MVP is like, well, it's a step above these other brands easily in my mind for quality control. If you're looking for consistency from a manufacturer, MVP is one of the brands that I would highly recommend in that regard. Castoplast is a brand that is getting extremely well, a manufacturer, they're a legitimate manufacturer that is getting extremely popular over the past couple years. They're a Swedish company. I unfortunately have not tried more than 5 discs from them, so you know, I can't rank them based on my own experiences. However, based on what I've seen online, their discs would fall somewhere within these two sort of echelons. So I have to put it in sample too small, but from the ones I have tried, they feel incredibly good. Swedes know how to make quality products, I suppose. Latitude 64, and I guess DD and West Side have also been included, so we'll rank these together. Latitude 64, Dynamic, and West Side, I think, have stellar quality control. They do have a pretty state of the art facility that they produce in, but I have not bought a disc from Latitude 64, Dynamic, or West Side that I have noticed any issues with. It's pretty similar to MVP actually in that regard. So actually, yeah, I think Latitude and by extension Discraft and West Side are all of extremely high quality standards, at least in my mind. I have yet to encounter a disc from any of those brands that threw me off from those perspectives. They don't have flashing, they don't have warping. I haven't noticed any inconsistencies from disc to disc. I haven't noticed any sort of like weird one-offs with like anything from them. And as much as I would like to be more critical of them in some ways, I really can't. So yeah, Latitude, DD, and West Side are all extremely well, extremely high on the quality control standard. And last, we have Discraft, which has been cropped horribly. Um, I will say this: Discraft's dimensional accuracy is very good. The real variance in their molds tends to come from the dome. From what I've noticed, the other thing that I've noticed from Discraft is they have a lot of molds that you have the noticeable like zipper top, so the machining really hasn't been polished on their molds. Um, which I'm not a huge fan of. I like their surface finish could be a bit better. I like them to be very smooth. But apart from that, I'm trying to think. I don't know that I've ever encountered a Discraft disc thus far that has had obnoxious flashing or like offset molds or the surface finish has been really poor. I think the yeah, no, the more that I think about it actually, I think Discraft, I don't think it is as high of quality as MVP or Trilogy. So for that reason, I'm going to put it above average because I definitely think it is a step above Prodigy and Innova in terms of quality control. And it's absolutely better than Infinite's quality control. But I do think there's a marked difference between the ones above and the ones below. So this is our list. Um, Hopefully this was helpful in some regard. If it was, be sure to leave a like. Leave a comment if you've had some different experiences with these brands. I'm very confident that everyone, like other people, have had differing experiences whenever they've bought discs from these companies. But these have been my experiences so far. Um, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any recommendations or questions or anything that you'd like to see in the future based on like product recommendations or any information about disc golf as a whole, please be sure to leave that in a comment below. Again, if you liked the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to. And thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.